Castillo de Santa Olalla, or Olaya, Laja del Cala, the mountain desempeñó un papel fundamental durante la Romanización. So during the Roman times, this was a defense fort against the Arabs. With the Arabs, all of Andalusia established this construction for defense during the conquest of Christianity, and the Muslim architecture was in the mountains Morena, and they try to control the flat plains of the Meseta. So this castle is up here. Let's check this out. First, nice stone marble Antiguitech. Very interesting setup in front of the place. Crystal, very crystally rock. It's actually some of the most crystally rock I've seen in one of these. Pretty impressive. Nice town. Very small. Here's some castle. So it was built supposedly on top of the ruins of an older castle, and then controlled by the Paleo-Christians. And then during the Moorish times, it was mainly a defense strategy in the north. And it was to defend this city right here, which is filled now with grape winery plantations, but there's also lots of stone, and in the stone regions not a lot seems to grow. They've got trees there, they're trying to pull apart the rocks, but in general it's a very rocky area. There's a lot of rock here. It's a perfect place to make a castle. But then of course you see there's bricks. This thing has been fixed a number of times. Huh. Good morning, guys. See here. Europe has never had a European king or queen ethnically wise. Well, I don't know about that. It's interesting. What does that mean? Didn't have. I mean, what does that mean? You're saying that Europe didn't have royalty, or am I missing your illusion? Like a race thing? I didn't get it. Probably faster to walk up this way. They weren't European. Okay, so what is Europe? Isn't Europa a goddess? Isn't that kind of point? Europe isn't white, is that what you're saying? That's fair. The Habsburgs were black, I'm pretty sure. They were from Egypt. Yeah, okay. I'm down with that. Maybe Eritrea, I kind of think. Because Eritreans have the same boats as Vikings. So my hypothesis has been that there was trade between Polynesia, Peru, Eritrea, Scandinavia, and some of the places that we think about, like Egypt being so important. Egypt's great and all, but there's a lot of cool things outside of Egypt. Egypt would have been like sort of one of the, safe havens. But the more interesting places would have been more destroyed by war, right? And it's kind of like Vegas. It's like out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. It's safer maybe. So a lot of the stuff was expected to last there longer. That's what we're finding here. I mean, Spain has cool places on the coast, don't get me wrong, but this thing, built on this crazy rock here, This thing is built up in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we're in the middle of Spain, basically. We're so far from everything that things are safer here. So Egypt's probably like that, and also Egypt was matriarchy in the sense that there was a kind of a queen for a long time, a judge, female judge, which might be where George Lucas got his idea. It was a victim that was turned into a judge originally, and then became a tradition, sort of the Cleopatra thing, which has been really far downplayed in our contemporary culture. They make it seem like it was some happenstance thing, and you wonder why Europeans like the matriarchy system. Queen bee. Oh, look at these rocks. Well, we're up at the castle now. It's fun hiking. Hey, look at you, buddy. You're on the internet, live. Hey. I want my Stellium 7 TV. Check out these rocks. Yeah, totally. I mean, second cousin, Cheney, preaching to the choir. But look at this nice architecture. All right. So somebody who was able to work with sandstone, marble, granite, and also this place, look at the kind of rock that they have. I mean, just naturally here. This is a spiral of stone, and then this built on top of it. So it's been broken down. And you can see the different eras, like, because you can see the original stone work, the big stone cobbled together, the revisions done by brick. So you can tell the difference between the periods when they were working on this. The original Paleo-Christian builds, the mid-Crusade builds, the 1800s repair work. I mean, it's all in one time. This is basically a time capsule, and it's great because there's not a lot of weather here. So things just kind of stay the same. Another cool thing about this building, look at this little box here. Interesting. Does this allude to tunnels under a castle? When you have tunnels in your castle? Seems like a good idea. Let me see. Phoenicians. Yeah, Phoenicians were traders, man. Like, who wants to rule anything? It's boring. Like, the king wants to jet ski all day. Let the parliament do the ruling. Organization and order, governing, boring. Phoenicians were like, let's have a grosser mercantilism. We'll have more. We'll share more. But the stonework, this says something to me about older societies having better technology. Just look at the brickwork, compare it to the stonework, and look at the original stonework, and see how much better it was originally and how much bigger the stones were. So that says a lot about the Celtiberians, because if the Celtic Iberians were, giants, they would be completely different architecture. We're told that they were these tiny little people. They built with small bricks, small stones, yet they were super sophisticated, had copper smelting before bronze smelting, which alludes to electricity. We don't even get how they did it, really, except if they did it the way we do it today. So I would be hard-pressed to say this was done by midgets. I'm just saying, it's just kind of impressive. I mean, I respect dwarves and midgets' ability to build, but this is ridiculously huge, and like the amount of stonework would require just so much technology, levers and pulleys and things. I mean, I'm not saying that's not what they had, but my God, just think about how sophisticated. All right, Thomas, I'm down. I'd like to figure out what time that really means, though. I'm not saying I'm convinced that this is not built without sophisticated technology. The idea of this being done by brute force seems, well, I mean, if there was a period, like in Spain, we found lots of evidence for titans, for large animals that existed in a earlier period, and that there's some sort of a Armageddon period that was written about biblically, and in other texts talk about Armageddon have already happened and the loss of these giant creatures. And then it talks about humans. There's Nephilim, but then there's humans, and there's small humans and large humans at the same time. And it seems like there's a difference, like interlocking in terms of sexuality and intelligence and certain things that have been controlled in order to manipulate the genes of each one of the different species. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were giant, but I think they were probably rather large humans. In Europe, there has been cases for it. You know, obviously they've destroyed so much of the evidence of large humans, but there are cases for it. If you look at some of the old cathedrals and old churches, where it really gets interesting though is just how small so many people were, because you have these giant doors with really low door handles, as if they've moved into places with large doors. Giantism exists. Yes, that's a thing. But, you know, it could be like in each one of the different Homo sapiens or Australopithecus or Heidelbergensis. Pretty big, though. These rocks are pretty impressive. The slabs here, I mean, just crazy, built on this giant crystal. I mean, so maybe the more important thing to say is that since this was taken over by smaller people for sure, like whether or not it was started on larger buildings, I was not trying to argue that point. I was mainly saying that afterwards it was taken over by small people. And so that's interesting because you have very, very intelligent small people. The Celtic Iberians were smelting, doing probably electrolysis. They were using alternating currents. They have bricks and, you know, different sophisticated mosaic patterns. So that I find very interesting. It's the high technology of these small people. It's pretty crazy. I mean, still the average height around here is like not tall. I find this building kind of interesting. It's too bad it's not open today, but that's kind of what you'll find. It's like one day a week they open these churches still, and then they go do a ceremony, and then we'll film one of these days live quietly. But they're pretty interesting because they do these very old style masses. But yeah, I mean, this building is incredible, and it goes on for about a kilometer. There's like parts of it in the back that wrap around the side. It's visible from Google Earth pretty easily, or, you know, I mean, zoom a bit. Yeah, also BZ Thomas, Doubting Thomas. I agree to the extent that I think that most of it is a lie, like obviously, but but like I would say I do believe, like for instance, in your lifetime, like your spirit evolves, like you mature, like I do believe in like a level of meaning to reality. And so I wouldn't go as far as to say that everything is a lie almost about anything. I think most lies are about the truth. So I think evolution is a good cover for choices and consequences, and that you can make consequences affect your life. And I think that's why they want to hide from you how important choices are. Because, you know, like let's say you meet someone and fall in love with them, and you treat them right, and you have a family, and that actually makes another family and it keeps going. Is that not selected evolution to an extent. I mean, it's obviously not what they want you to think it is, which is like that it's random and things change randomly and then nobody seems to have any control over it because it just sort of happens. Whoops. I mean, there you go. There you found some lie. But like, if you're trying to find truth, don't throw the baby out with the baptismal water. A lot of iron in this rock. What do you reckon? Is this what do you think, Stellium? Is this some dragon? Do you feel like this is a giant titan of some kind that it's on top of, or what?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what.
There's scales over there.
It'd be nice if there was some kind of a, like, identify a titan test that you could buy down at the pharmacy.
True.
You know, 20 euros.
We're getting closer to it.
What species?
Well, you got blood on the rock. It's in specific locations here. You got the iron that's poured through. And it's beautiful though, because they've cut the stone for uses so it's straight as much as possible right in front of it. And I mean, this thing has quartz everywhere. It's so much quartz. It seems like almost the most quartzy castle I've seen so far. Plus things growing through it finally, which means like that tells you a little bit about the age, right? Like, how long has that been there? Unless it's burned.
That's a totally different structure of the rock that Montreux's made out of, and it's got this tight layering. Could be scales, you never know. Giant serpents, probably a thing, right? All the mythologies seem to talk about it. Serpents, dragons. Be a nice solid foundation to build your castle on.
You got people saying like, hey, no one posted a link to this in the chart here. Got to start posting links to this. You did? Okay. I didn't. I was thinking I definitely didn't. It was a surprise that we went to this castle. We were just driving by it. It's just all these castles that are in the middle of nowhere.
Oh no, that's Lee.
Lee did the great work. The good work. Lee, I hope you're having a wonderful week. Heard good things about your week. I hope it's going well. I miss you. I'll talk to you on the Tartary Nova Discord pretty soon. We're just driving back. We're gonna go through Toledo from Sevilla. Toledo is a very important city.
Toledo!
Holy Toledo. We have a whole playlist of Toledo songs, which are just songs that have Toledo in them. Holy Toledo. You know, I got as many wives as French fries. There's a Ohio Toledo too. There's a lot of different songs in Ohio. But there's also an architect, supposedly Toledo, and he built one of, or many of, the eighth wonders of the world that they claim for a while, you know. These castles that were ginormous, if that's a technical term. And there's an entire town named after him. It's a precinct just south of Madrid. So we're gonna go through Madrid. We're gonna go to Toledo. Toledo's gonna have, I mean, Madrid's got in Guadarrama this, you know, the San Cristobal castle, which is like the size of an airport. But in Toledo, the whole city is just nothing but giant quartz crystal castles, gold paintings, and there's river systems with aqueducts and lots of Roman architecture. It's very, very well. I mean, it's conclusive that there was already a city with great architecture there before he was there. So the thought is that he built upon the great architecture, and that he was so inspired by the great architecture of his hometown, he created so many of the great buildings. And that we've forgotten, you know, all the older buildings before him are basically all gone now because, you know, he helped fix all of them, or people that studied under him. And, you know, I mean, again, there's never a full lie. Everything's always got a little truth in it. So like, yeah, they totally tore down huge parts of Toledo. I mean, the Crusades were a time that things happened. Whether or not they happened when you were told they did, or who fought whom, like whom fought who. The Crusades had serious repercussions in Spain, and in Denmark and in Russia. I mean, obviously, even today in Palestine and Israel. So there is a lot to be said for the Crusades' impacts on the region. So we'll find tons of buildings have been torn down, tons of buildings have been built over, tons of buildings have been bombed. I mean, when you see part of the wall has been given away, it's not unlikely that it's from a cannon, you know? It's pretty likely. So when you see that the wall has had bricks put in it, when you see arrow holes slit, you know those were probably in use at one point or many points in some sort of a Game of Thrones like Targaryen mystery. But what it's starting to look like is that there's two versions of the great myth, right? There's the hero's epic, and you've got the Fellowship of the Ring, right, which is the kind of J.R.R. Tolkien version, and then you've got the entire mythos of the conspiracy against each other that is Game of Thrones. It's like everyone's trying to fight each other and manipulate each other. It's very much the opposite of the working together system. It lost in tartar sauce. Stories. Well, what's the reason they call them stories? What's the reason? I'm very curious. I haven't looked that one up. What's the etymology? Or well, why do they call them stories? You know, because like, there's a lot of good stories about like How I Met Your Mother. Hey, and the stork. Check out the stork. The stork nest right there. It's very common. Manufactured.
This is often
Okay, well, everything's okay. Like manufactured is a weird word too, because everything is told through the eyes of the storyteller. It's like, but you could have your parents tell you how they met, and it would be a manufactured story. Yes, but at the same time, it's still based in some reality. I mean, that's that whole based on a true story thing, right? Inspired by a true story. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, it's a very scary movie to a lot of people because it said based on a true story. It made them think if they were driving through Texas, this movie could happen to them, you know. But what is the actual truth? There were, you know, people that were arrested in the 50s, and they arrested a guy, and then he had a chainsaw, and they said, okay, well, that's inspiring this true story. So there's a kernel of truth. Well, okay, not everything is real, but almost anything that you think is not real has something real to it. There's almost nothing that's, there's almost nothing that's full of complete fabrication. Well, I mean, you know, I hear you. It's one of the main reasons we try to get as much data as possible so we can point it out and be like, okay, well, this is a rock. This is a castle. This is not necessarily just our opinions. I mean, as much as possible, I tell you what their official story is. So you can hear what other people think. So you don't just get the ramblings of a rambling man. But yeah, there's always going to be certain amounts of everything that's inspired by story because you're trying to figure it out based on story. And what's crazy is how often it turns out to be true, right? Like, we've had stories for a long time that there was like intelligent design instead of evolution, and everyone was trying to push this evolution theory, and then boom, DNA proves that there is intelligent design. Essentially, it's not chaotic. It's pretty clear, and so it kind of screws up the whole model because it says, okay, well, this old story, which was, you know, I mean, there's got to be parts of the story which are story, but there's a lot more truth to them, and as we start to understand that, it's not the other way around. It's not that there's less truth to the stories, and we're revealing through deductions of our own by working together great truths. We're just revealing, you know, we're finding what was hidden and seeing it again. So, I mean, I'm just saying there are stories about these rocks being giant living things. There's already living things in these rocks now. manufactured, whatever is in whatever manner. Yes, to facture. Well, I mean, think about synthesize or artifice, artificial, all those things. As we talk about the difference between simulation theory, which is probably just to get a bunch of people to become psychopaths so that they can hurt each other, or stimulation theory, which is like the hypothesis that we're having a mistruth veiled over our reality, which is more likely. And it seems that there's a lot of consequences to a veiled truth over our reality that we don't really anticipate, because we end up destroying everything when we try to align with a way of looking at things, which, as science has shown, say the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where you cannot predict and also look at an atom. It strikes a pose every time. So we're affecting our research by saying it should be this non-God model, basically. So if we have this kind of outlook, then yeah, of course we're gonna see, that nothing makes sense and that everything is chaos for as long as possible. But if you're looking for a pattern, the pattern emerges, whether it's there or not. So then what you're able to do is eventually find something that could be true from that milieu. You can take the lens and break it up. And that's what Teilhard Chardin was trying to do, and that's like how he went from studying jade to studying biology, and it still is a better theory than anyone else's. I mean, but he was into stories too. So I mean, he didn't get rid of the idea of looking into metaphysics, and I think that's going to be a continual trend. I don't think we're ever going to really get rid of stories, because pure raw data has zero inference capacity. Can't really think in data. You need to have analytics. And story will always replace data with analytics. But could be wrong. Is it hot there? Yeah, it's pretty warm here. It's pretty warm indeed. Kind of makes you think, if Jesus had to go through Africa to the Middle East, right, and deal with the weather, Japan would have been nice, right? It does get hot there too, but the weather seasons. What is the noise? Did we figure that out?
I know I recorded that. I was scared. I thought it was gonna go up.
Is it a bird, a frog, or a cricket?
It's the windows, I think.
Cicada.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like
Crickets. They don't go like in California. Here they just go one buzz.
They don't even know how to make real cricket music. That's like not even a legit cucaracha. And now it's embarrassed.
Yeah.
You blew it.
We heard you.
Who hurt its feelings? The stork nest, though, eh, fam? That's good luck. They say you see a stork fly out of a stork's nest or into a stork's nest, and then usually, like, something good happens. Usually to do with a relationship. Because storks, Stork gate. Fractured soul of the baby. Cicadas. Could be. Ceramic roof. Okay, so I wanted to bring this up. I didn't want to be rude, but I shouldn't mention too much names because it's rude. I'm just trying to say, like, I saw some information out there recently in the mud flood research paper that was it lacked data, but it was like really interesting stuff. It was very entertaining research, but it was construing a misquote, and also had a lack of facts. It actually said the opposite of what was true. So I kind of wanted to like address it. I was trying to say this in the nicest way possible, though. So like European buildings during the World War II, which were air bombed by the inferior planes that the Americans had, because the Germans had faster planes, so the Americans and the British flew at night and dropped bombs randomly. They landed them and it wasn't direct energy weapons. I mean, like the Germans might, you could say Dresden looks like that, but the problem is, what you have afterwards is you have these concrete brick walls and the wood beams between. See, the way this building works is that there's wood that's suspended that has floors, probably. I haven't been inside this one, but most of the ones I've been into, and most of these buildings here are the same way. There are wooden beams with floors, and then there's ceramic roofs on top of them, right? Even these churches have ceramic roofs, ceramic tile roofs. Some of them have stone shingles, but one way or another, you get these tile roofs. So if you dropped a bomb on a tile roof, okay, from a plane, and then it went through 4 stories and lit everything on fire, because the house on the inside is all wood, it makes perfect sense. Like there's no reason you need a direct energy weapon for that. And I've seen California after the last fire where like they destroyed all of these houses with firestorms, and there's no cinder blocks are melted, turned to brimstone, you know. And there's no building left. There's no, yeah, it doesn't work like that. That's not, because if you had a direct energy weapon, you could destroy the brick and the stone. And so just wanted to address that, because it's like, it's a cool story, but like the real story is just as brutal, really, is that like shoddy work, because we were so spread out in the South Pacific, United States were, that we ended up not having the capacity, and we were paying random people to invent new things. The money was just appearing, and by this point the Germans already had like turbo thruster propulsion jets, which are propeller planes. You know, we still had propeller planes at the beginning of the war, so they weren't able to move that fast. And B-29s even were like, I think the beginning of when we started really thinking about the importance of jets, right? B-17s maybe, but B-29s, which were what we supposedly dropped the bomb in Hiroshima with. So I don't know, I like machines, and I like their capacities, but I also like architecture, so I just wanted to address that. The stonework is still here. You know, a lot of what they do is the buildings, they'll tear out the inside, strip them, and then they'll keep the brick wall, and then they'll put up, you know, that way the building looks antique, right? Because it's the wall that they save because it looks cool. Also, probably because there's some value to it. I mean, look at the arches, right? Like, you know, these arches, they'll save these crazy arches in the front of the building, and they look the most dilapidated. So it seems like that's probably the oldest part of the building. It might have some like mystical value to them, or some actual technological purpose. Too precise. Okay, I don't know which one you mean was too precise, or if you're talking about world like Dresden or something like that. If you mean like any city, give me an example. I'll show you how it was done with an air bomb. But like, yeah, if you really want to see direct energy weapons, look into Korea, look into Japan, look into Russia. You can start seeing great examples of Tunguska and things like that. And also volcanoes, because volcanoes, they're all over the planet. They're underwater. There are lots of zits on the earth that are going off. I guess all over the planet is going to upset people. I mean, like all around the thing that you're living on. You seriously feel like it's talking to the LGBTQ now whenever I talk about the flat, because it's like you have to use the exact right word or someone gets upset. But look, it's okay. There are natural hydrothermic vents. There is propulsion from gases. There are caves. There are tunnels. There are all these systems, and a lot of them are biological. So there's geobiological systems. So they're actually alive, and what that means, we're not completely sure of yet. Like, you know, you have people on the internet that are calling these things dragons, you know, but like they could just be giant bananas or like mushrooms, or who knows exactly like what kind of mushrooms under the earth causing gases and things could be really like an important part of this. Like there's something alive that's under the earth, and it's part of it, and that's causing tons of energy, and it's being exploited, and it's caused mass devastation in the past. That I'm pretty sure of. We can find more if you want to look into it, like also come into the Discord. We'll be doing some more photos and videos to address that. But there are living systems. There is some truth to it. Yeah, exploding giant toilets. Yeah, that's the other reason you got to be careful when you go to the other side of the equator, right? Because the water goes the other direction. So you have to slam the toilet seat down so it doesn't shoot out. It's an Australian joke. All right, well, you've seen the castle. We've addressed some things. Is there anything else that I should cover? Do you guys want to? Oh, God. Look into it.
When we see him in Holy Toledo.
Holy Toledo. See you in Holy Toledo, guys.
Holy Toledo!
Narwhals, narwhals swimming in the ocean. Holy Toledo.